The red-tailed hawk is the most common raptor we have in North America. Sam and Terry are back from the Ontario Falconry Centre with two of these amazing birds. And my co-host Ian and I are going to find out more and ask you a bunch of questions. First of all, you brought two birds. One's an immature bird and one's a mature bird. How do we know which is which?
Well, maturity is gauged by life expectancy. So these birds will live up to 20 years. They mature within the third year. So the mature red-tailed hawk definitely has a red tail. And the immature red-tailed hawk does not have a red tail. So that's how we know the difference between them.
So you're saying this one is the immature?
You got it.
Okay. Yeah. And so how long did you say they live?
Roughly about 20 years in captivity, half of that in the wild.
Wow. And how many eggs do they lay at a time?
An average of 3 to 4 eggs.
How many of those will survive? All 3 or 4?
That's a very good question, because only 1 out of 3 survive in the wild. They'll ever make it to be mature.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What do they eat, Terry?
We feed them quail. In the wild, they'll eat mice and rodents. Maybe if they're not lazy enough, they'll catch whatever is running alongside of the highway.
Have you seen many of these, Ian?
No, I can't say I have.
No? Well, 9 out of 10 times when you see a bird on the side of the highway or top of a pole or a tree, it's a red-tailed hawk.
Well, maybe I have then, just didn't know what it was.
So on one of those big giant posts that you see, so how do they hunt for their prey? Is it sort of a dive bomb? Is it just like what happened on the floor just there?
Yeah, and you know what? In some countries, that would have been good luck if it landed on Terry's foot, but not Canada. I think Europe, right? So, yeah, what they do is they're actually very, very lazy. So they stay on top of a pole or a treetop, and they wait for that unsuspected mouse, vole, squirrel, or maybe even a bunny rabbit, right? But never the cute ones,
never
sweetie,
the cute
always
ones.
the ugly ones. So they take the opportunity of that advantage, that's all. So they're very, very lazy birds.
You also have workshops at the Ontario Falconry Centre. Why don't you tell us about the workshops, Terry?
We do 1-hour workshops. It's there's 2 choices. There is Falconer of the Day, which the name is kind of off, but it's still an hour. You fly, you feed, you handle the birds. Introduction to falconry itself. Then we have another option, which is just a meet and greet for people who maybe are a little skittish and just trying to get used to the birds. You come and hold them, you learn about them, and just experience what it's like to actually hold one on your fist.
So, you're talking about holding these birds, but what other types of birds you have? So far you've been on the show and you brought an owl.
We bring roughly anywhere between 14 to 16 birds with us at the workshop. So you're going to do all the raptors from the kestrels up to the eagles. So all the type of raptors.
How much do they normally weigh? Sorry.
Well, giving their species, anywhere between, say, 115 grams to about 14 pounds.
Oh.
So the average bird, you can't identify the average bird. It's definitely by species. So the female red-tailed hawk is about 1,400 grams, and the male right over there is about 840 grams. And that's how we gauge them, by weight.
That was a really good question, because speaking of weight, is this true or false? I had read that this particular bird will eat 10% of its body weight in food every day.
Oh, I don't think my grade 8 education allows me to understand. I definitely go by weight when it comes to the birds. This bird could eat a whole quail, so an equivalent of maybe a partial squirrel. Yeah, but as terms in weight, I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, if that's true, the saying if you eat like a bird doesn't mean you're eating light.
No.
Yeah, you got it.
You had a question about asking what they eat as well.
Oh yeah, do they eat ducks by chance?
They do. They'll take advantage of the duck. But remember, in the wild, that these birds will take the opportunity to take anything old, weak, and young. So if a duck is injured, or if it's old, definitely they'll take that
So
advantage.
go for the easy kill.
Yeah. They gauge the percentage-wise. So when they're up on the pole and they see that prey, they gauge, okay, do I have an 80% chance of getting it, or 40%? They won't take advantage of the 40%. They'll definitely be 80%, yes.
It's interesting.
Yes.
You know what I noticed, the difference between this particular raptor and the bald eagle is that the bald eagle had to keep the mask on the entire time.
Yeah, exactly.
And you were able to take the hoods off these birds.
Yeah. Now, with these ones, they're a little bit more social. They're a little bit more used to people lights and everything like that. Even though she's a little apprehensive, this one right here, I'm kind of looking at her at the corner of my eye, just like Terry looks at me.
So what are you looking for when you're saying you're looking at her through the corner of your eye?
She's gawking up and looking at everything above her, so I'm kind of counterbalancing her, making her preoccupied with my fists instead of everything else.
Okay, and so you're not afraid that this bird will peck you? That's why when it's looking at me when I'm holding it.
I'm actually not. But they do engage on flesh. So if I get my hand close to them, they probably might take it as food.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing us these beautiful birds
My
today.
pleasure.
You're welcome.
And the crosstalkers will perform for us when we return. We'll be right back.